Well, the Blaine County Sheriff's Office needs your help in finding a missing hiker from Utah. 3-year-old Park City resident Fern Baird signed in at the Prairie Creek Trailhead north of Ketchum on October 19th around 1 p.m., and she never returned. Baird was listed as a missing person 3 days later, and that's when the Blaine County Search and Rescue Team, as well as deputies, began their search. They found her vehicle, but she could have taken a number of different trails. Right now, the county wants information from the public. They would like to speak with an unknown Boise couple and a party of 5 hikers from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who were hiking either the West Fork drainage of Prairie Creek or Prairie Lake. The family is offering a $25,000 reward for information leading to her return. She's described as 5 foot 5 inches tall, weighing 115 pounds. Baird was last seen wearing a gray jacket, black pants, and carrying a black fanny pack. She is considered to be an experienced hiker, but is not known to do technical hikes or mountaineering. If anyone has seen Baird or has any information about her, please contact Lieutenant Micah Baird at the number listed on your screen.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to another case study, where I talk about and analyze some of the most puzzling state and national park missing person cases out there. In this segment, I'll be discussing a case that I briefly covered in Volume 31. But despite all the sources thrown into the search and the widespread media coverage, little to no clues have surfaced pointing to the woman's whereabouts. On October 19th of 2020, a 62-year-old hiker and outdoor enthusiast arrived at the Prairie Creek Trailhead inside the Sawtooth National Forest in Idaho, but never checked out. The search would last several weeks, but as of June 2021, there's still no sign of her. So let's begin. "62-year-old Fern Baird, a Utah resident, arrived at a nearby hotel where she checked in before driving her 2018 Subaru Crosstrek to the Prairie Creek Trailhead. Wearing a gray jacket, black pants, and a black fanny pack, she signed the trailhead's log before entering the trail. Now, I was unable to find any further information stating what time she recorded her log, but it was stated by the Blaine County Sheriff's Office. A group of Tulsa hikers signed the logbook as well around the same time she did. Unfortunately, law enforcement was unable to trace the individuals in that group to interview them, as these folks may have been the last people to see her prior to her disappearance. It wasn't known exactly what Fern's plans were for that day, but it was speculated she would walk the flat 2.5-mile-long loop before returning to her hotel. Now, it is recommended by park officials that all visitors who plan on walking the trail grab a Prairie Creek State Park brochure from the visitor center prior to doing so. Although it is rated as a short and easy hike, the trail consists of, quote, many other trails and days of hiking and exploration that lead off from the main loop, end quote. Could this be a clue as to what may have happened to her? Well, according to friends and family, Fern was an avid hiker and was also known to be in great shape. Many folks believe that the easy 2.5-mile loop would not be challenging enough for the woman, as she may have decided to take one of these side trails. I can't tell you how many of these disappearances I cover begin with this very scenario. Hiker enters a short and easy trail and decides to take a breakaway trail, never to be seen again. And if they are found, more times than not, they ended up veering off their main course. Now, there were many others who hiked the trail that day, but no one else has come forward with any information. I find this quite odd. You would think someone would have at least seen her, if she was indeed on the trail as the logbook suggested. But then again, We're so often wrapped up in our own tasks and activities, let alone keep tabs on what others are doing. I'm pretty sure someone out there saw her without actually seeing her, if you know what I mean. Before we get into the search details, let's switch gears and talk about the area where she went missing, just to give you an idea of what both Fern and Search and Rescue were up against. Prairie Creek Trailhead is a trail on Prairie Creek, Mill Creek, and West Fork Prairie Creeks, located inside the Sawtooth National Forest of the Rocky Mountains in Idaho. Now, I could go on forever speculating where she may have ventured off to, and there are so many break-off trails to choose from. But let's have a look at the West Fork section of the Prairie Creek Trail. This is one of the more volatile and unpredictable hikes in that area. It is considered a 3.1 mile out and back trail and moderately difficult to traverse with an elevation gain of 561 feet. If we take a gander at the reviews left by other hikers on alltrails.com, we see some pretty interesting reviews about the West Fork section. For example, here's a 1-star review left by a disappointed hiker. Quote, "Do not take this trail. It is impassable just after a few hundred yards. There is a heavy rock slide that is dangerous to try and cross. We tried going down the creek and crossing there, but the climb down was totally impossible." The reviewer goes on to express her concern for safety issues and whatnot. Another reviewer stated, quote, "We went to the right and hit some rocks and were not able to go any further. We returned and went to the left instead, and it wasn't much better." And finally, here's another reviewer that stated, quote, "There are much better trails than you can take to enjoy the park's beauty than this one. The West Fork should be closed to the public." End quote. You can read these reviews and more if you go to alltrails.com and look out the West Fork section. So as you can see, this part of Prairie Creek has left many hikers with a bad taste in their mouths. It is possible Fern may have taken this path without actually knowing what she was getting herself into. I hope searchers paid attention to those rock slide areas. Established in 1905, the Sawtooth National Forest consists of over 2 million acres of sagebrush, spruce fir, and alpine tundra, with over 1,100 lakes and 3,500 miles of creeks and rivers. It also consists of 4 ski areas, 81 campgrounds, and over 1,000 miles of hiking trails. Some of the more prominent features of the park include the Soldier Mountains, the Boulder Mountains, and Hinman Peak in the Pioneer Mountains, the highest point in the forest at over 12,000 feet in elevation. As you can see, there's a whole lot of forest to get lost in. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and talk about the search for Fern. The day after she was reported missing on October 20th of 2020, the Blaine County Sheriff's Office took lead in the search, focusing primarily on the Pacific Creek Trailhead and the area surrounding where her black Subaru was parked. Items found in Fern's car were consistent with a short day hike, as her purse and other personal items were left inside. In the first few days of the search, 24 sheriff's deputies, park staff, and K-9 teams conducted their search but found no clues to her whereabouts. At this point, more sources were poured into the search effort, including members from both Ketchum Ranger District, the Fairfield Ranger District, the Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue Unit, and the National Guard. It was also noted that volunteers were turned away from the search due to the difficulty and danger in these trails. By days 4 and 5, over 100 professional search personnel combed through the forest, night and day, working in shifts around the clock. Night vision, infrared, drones, FLIR technology, and other aerial searches were utilized within the first week, but despite these combined efforts, no trace of Fern would be discovered. By October 30th, one last attempt would be made as search and rescue airlifted 7 K-9 teams into the search area, pushing up into the higher elevations ranging from 7,100 feet to 9,200 feet. Unfortunately, despite everyone's best efforts and dwindling resources, the sheriff's office would make the difficult decision to end the search altogether. They would continue to investigate and follow leads for weeks and even months to come, but nothing ever came of it. So how does one experienced hiker vanish without a trace during a seemingly simple hike in an area completely covered by searchers? It's a question we're often left asking in too many of these types of cases. Before we talk about what may have occurred out there, let's look at Fern herself. Were there any clues that could point us in the right direction? Though Fern was known to be an avid hiker, it was also mentioned she avoided technical and difficult hikes, which means she most likely stayed close to the trailhead. Fern was known to be in good spirits by those who both knew her and those who last saw her. Surveillance of Fern checking into the hotel would show nothing unusual. Now, investigators stated that a group of 5 hikers from Tulsa signed the park's logbook right after she did. Investigators also believe that the group hiked either the West Fork drainage of Prairie Creek or to Prairie Lake on October 19th. I do find it quite odd how none of these 5 Tulsa hikers ever came forward to answer the many questions that may have pointed searchers in the right direction. You would think in the course of the investigation that one of these folks may have heard about Fern's disappearance, as it made national headlines throughout the hiking community. Of course, we're all asking, could they have something to do with Fern's disappearance? Who exactly were these folks? The pack mentality of certain groups of people can be a dangerous thing if you get all the wrong types of people together. I can easily imagine a scenario where Fern runs into a group of unsavory individuals with malicious intent. Were these folks doing any illegal activities? Did Fern stumble across it? Did she see something she shouldn't have? Was she in the wrong place at the wrong time? I didn't see any information about her phone ever pinging or being used out there on the trail. She was known to carry a phone, so if it wasn't in her hotel room or in the car, it was most likely on her. Was there a poor signal on the trail? Had she tried calling for help in a bad area? Well, here's another little detail I find quite odd. You would think that all the search dogs that report into the search effort, at least one of them would have picked up her scent. But that wasn't the case. It was like she was never even on that trail. Had something happened to her between the point she left her car and entered the trail, or was it the other way around? One thing is clear. Something unusual happened to her. People just don't go missing without a trace, without something unusual or sinister behind it. Of course, there's always that possibility she may have simply gotten lost, and as night fell, she may have wandered into oblivion, entering areas that searchers just didn't think to look at. But I get the feeling she was either taken or became victim to foul play. but with little to no evidence pointing to either of these scenarios, it's difficult to speculate what exactly occurred out there. Perhaps in time we'll begin to uncover and discover new clues that might point us in the right direction. But until then, we can only speculate on what we do and don't know. We all can learn a little something from Fern's disappearance, and the countless cases just like hers. Anyone can disappear without a trace under the right, or should I say wrong, circumstances. Solo hiking is a risky way to enjoy sweet Mother Nature, but if you decide to go down that road, carry a GPS locator device, and if you're comfortable around firearms, well, that's not a bad idea either. If any of you listening or watching this video have information about Fern's disappearance, you can contact the Blaine County Sheriff's Office at 208-788-5555. Thank you for watching, and may we never forget the sad and strange disappearance of Fern Baird.